Welcome, one and all.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going great. We don't have a Scott today, so I got myself on screen at the beginning. So yay! We didn't have a Randall, so I had to dance with my dad.
I don't have a Randall or a Scott today.
That's right.
It's a sad.
We do have great guests. So
we have great guests. Yes, indeed. Let's crack on with the do's and don'ts, and then we'll get into some talking about Flutter and Dart and everything else.
Sounds great.
All right, let's see.
Okay, so my first time doing the do's and don'ts, but we're going to keep it pretty quick. So you know to be nice, respectful, and constructive when you're commenting on stuff here. Obviously, adult content, rude, or offensive statements would not be following those rules. You don't get to advertise stuff, unfortunately. We can if we're on screen, but I don't think we really are too much, other than maybe conferences and stuff coming up. The most important one that people do is spam, which is basically posting the same thing over and over again. We don't, if you do that, with a question, when we see the new question, we tag it at the bottom of the list. So that's not something you want to do. Happy to say we don't really see this very often, but harassment of any kind, that's probably the most important thing that we have. Not the most practical, but the most important thing. And so obviously don't do that, and have a good time.
Indeed, have a good time. So I just want to mention that if you do want to paste some code, you need to paste it in a gist. So go to gists.github.com and you can paste your code and then label it like the file name .dart, and it will syntax highlight, and just send us the hash in the chat message. That's the bit from the end of the URL. We can go find your code and talk about it or do whatever we need to do.
And that works really well when we do that. And also, if you have a question, put a Q in front of it.
I was about to say, yeah. If you do post a link, we won't see the message at all. So not just a bit without the link, we just don't get to see the entire message. So don't post links; they won't come through. Okay. And if you want to post a question, put a Q in front of it. Let's do some brief introductions, and then we'll get to it. So my name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Lead and CTO at DevAngels London, and I do not work for Google. And you can follow me on Twitter at DevAngels London. Scott and Randall can't be with us, but we have Danielle. Danielle, please introduce yourself.
Hey, it's my first time to be up to the very beginning, but I'm Danielle. I'm an organizer with Flutteristas. I'm actually reminded by the T-shirt I'm wearing today that I am also a Women Tech Maker Ambassador. So, lots of good stuff that happens trying to make sure that we empower all of our community members, and make sure that everything can happen. And I'm, for the day job, I lead a small team of Flutter engineers at a company called Ardley. And that's pretty much me.
We also have a few other people joining us. John, welcome to the stage.
Hey, how's it going? Haven't seen you guys in a while. A couple weeks off.
Say a few words.
All that fun stuff. Yeah.
So introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah. So John Wizzy, I am an architect engineer for a small company, and spend my free time doing Flutter stuff. So
Tiny company.
Yeah. Just
have we heard of that company? Have we heard of it?
It might be up on the wall somewhere back there behind me. Yeah. So I hang out in Discord, answering questions in the Discord server there for all the Flutter folks, and manage the Flutter community medium, and spend whatever Wednesdays I can here with you guys.
It's nice to have you here. We also have a Raf returning guest. Raf, welcome to the stage.
Hello, guys. Nice to be here again this week. So, yeah, I'm Raf, and I'm doing some community stuff for Flutter. It's mostly for Flutter community and GitHub. Yep.
And we also have a Lucas. Lucas, welcome.
Hello. I'm Flutter GD for Dart and Flutter. My name is Lucas, or Spidon Online. I see the only other Flutter GD in Sweden is in the comments too, Robert. So that's fun. I'm also organizing a conference called Flutter Friends in Stockholm.
Really? There's a conference called Flutter Friends? Where is it?
Who has ever heard about that one? I don't know. Should I go ahead and present it directly, or
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. All right. So if you haven't heard about Flutter and Friends, it was a huge success last year. It is a little bit different than normal conferences because we have a lot of focus on social activities. So the first day of the conference is just a full day of social activities where you get to know a lot of people in the community, and you're bonding a little bit before the actual conference starts. And yeah, it's on the 1st to the 3rd of September in Stockholm, as I said. And the second day after the conference, or after the social activities day, there is like a normal talk day, which is in the house there in the top of the header, so in the absolute center of Stockholm. So it's quite convenient to get around there compared to a lot of the other conferences where you're quite far off. And then on the last day, there is a workshop and a hackathon day. And then we also have things like a big party, and we have something called Dinner with Strangers, where you get paired up with a group of Flutter people, and you get to know them a little bit better.
Oh, look, you got keynote speaker. No one knows who's this guy.
Yeah, who's he? And if you haven't heard any talk of the second guy there, Slava, you should really check out his talk from last year. It's mind blowing. He's always doing super good talks, and we actually all of the people we have in there are amazing.
I'll pop this link in the chat for anyone who wants to go look at the...
Yeah, you can. I have a shared discount code on in the Slack channel too that you can share in there if you want to,
sure.
So that the community folks listening here get 20% off the tickets.
There you go. Links in the chat.
Superb. Thank you.
Yeah, I've not had the pleasure of making it last year, or I won't make it this year, for kind of the same reason Lucas won't make it. Yeah, for kind of the same reason Lucas won't make it to New York City. They're just so close together, and so far away from each other. But I can tell you, we may have bigger conferences. We may have even more established conferences. But everybody I talk to on the ground say this is the one. If you can do one conference in a year, this is the one to do. For all the reasons that Lucas just mentioned.
Yeah,
sounds like something. What was that film? Like with the sword, Highlander. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. There can be only one.
The one. There can be only one.
There can be only one. Yeah. Because of that, I have a sword on my wall over there. It's not. The sword's not from the movie, but I think that's the reason why I have the sword. It's because Highlander. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. If you remember, it bombed originally, and it didn't get cult status until much later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't find it until the TV series came out.
Right. Have we stalled enough? Should we go through some of the announcements?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on. Let's do this. Here we go. So yesterday it was announced Flutter 3.24 and Dart 3.5. Let's zoom in a bit. That better. Yeah, so this is the overarching announcement blog piece, and then there's specifics around the two Flutter and Dart as well. So we'll go through those briefly. So we'll just do this one briefly, and then we'll go through the detailed ones. Some new updates. Early preview of Flutter GPU, enhancements for embedding, several exciting updates, including support for Swift Package Manager, which actually really interests me. Yeah. We've been using the pod file and pod system, pod specs for a very long time, and it has been like the de facto standard in iOS for a long time. However, that was the Objective-C days. As soon as Swift came along, it was like Swift Package Manager, and we just haven't been using it. So originally, Flutter was using Objective-C and only worked with Objective-C, and then it made the move to allow for Swift, and then Swift Package Manager is now finally here, and it's that gap has been quite a few years in the mix. So really glad that we're getting there. We'll see, I guess, where it gets. We'll go through more detail in a minute. So Impeller, there's been some improvements around Impeller and how it works, and specifically 3D. So Flutter, I think we spoke about it several times on the stream before, the Flutter GPU API, but we could go through that in a bit more detail. There's actually so we'll go through some links later. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff happening there for sure. I think for most people, the 3D scene API, which is like this, the API that literally drops like objects like this in the scene, is probably more applicable. than most people realize. It basically allows you to treat a 3D object as a widget, and then you can then sort of group them together and transform them and everything else like you would do with widgets, which means you kind of each time you want to move something or change a parameter, you'd be treating it almost like like rebuilding a widget, right? But it gets the for the most part, that is what most people need. They don't need a full like 3D engine, but that's where the lower level APIs come in with Flutter GPU. Anyway, we'll get to that. Yeah, so some examples in here. We'll go through them again. There's some. We got this one. Getting started with Flutter GPU. Is that the one? Yeah. So we'll go through that in a minute. What else do we have here? Yeah, Swift Package Manager, as we spoke about. So I think the interesting thing is going to be what the migration path is for this, right? And how difficult or easy it is to move from one to the other. And obviously, Flutter plugins that depend on pod spec, are they going to have to be deployed in such a way that allows them to work with Swift Package Manager as well?
Yeah, so I actually done that for a few community plugins, and it's not hard, but yes, you need to move the plugins. If you have basically Cocoa pods file, then you need to move.
Can you support both at the same time?
Yes.
But we are heading toward deprecating CocoaPods, right?
I would hope so. I mean,
in the end, yes.
Yeah. I believe I saw that somewhere when I was reading through.
It's probably a little ways off, since this is really just the beginning of support for Swift.
Yeah, I think it was heading toward that. It's kind of what I think I saw a comment saying it was heading toward doing that.
This is interesting as well. Modernize, expand the Cupertino widget library, resolving 15 issues and 37 missing Cupertino widgets in the widget catalog. So,
yeah,
maybe. I mean, I'm not sure.
But that's embarking on the journey. That's roadmap kind of stuff, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if they've added 37 new widgets, then obviously that's great for in terms of compatibility. And
I think yeah, but I think what it says is they've started the journey to add the 37.
Sorry.
We've embarked on a journey to
Okay, yeah. Resolve.
Yeah, and I think in the
adding 37.
Yeah,
okay.
And in the specific one, they talk about the ones that were added now recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then this one's got me. This one's actually really good. So now you've got platform view and web view support for macOS, which is absolutely great. So allows for seamless integration of macOS UI components, polished user experience. If any questions, anyone, please make sure you put Q in front of them in the chat, and we'll get to them as we go. Gonna have to go back. Can you start things, and Danielle? Do you have that access? Sure.
I think I can. Yeah, I can. Absolutely, I can. I got it. Cool. Or at least while I'm here.
Cool. Highlighting global impact environment community. So yeah, this is just highlighting the fact that there's been a huge number of commits and unique contributors and everything else to the repo. Talking about who was it? It was Taha who did was it Taha who got through that change with spacing on columns and rows?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's wanted that for a long time. It's been sitting in purgatory sort of thing for ages. And then I think it's been like a week. Has it been like a week? It came back alive and it's been like smashed it, right? And it's now in the master branch or something.
It was a wild discussion on in that issue.
Have you actually read it? I haven't got a chance to read it yet. So
yeah. I mean, I put up a Twitter post about it, and that was how it all started. That brought in a lot of people in there, and but yeah,
quite a few people,
it was quite constructive in then.
I saw quite a few people, I think before your post actually, around, or maybe it wasn't before your post. It was a Flutter merge, when it got merged.
Yeah. I mean, the post that I did before Taha accepted to do it.
Right. So,
but you
so
can
yeah,
see that people really want it to. Because, like I put up a LinkedIn post just showing how simple it is to use now, and it has like 40,000 views now and 800 likes. It's
well,
mind-blowing.
it's something
It's a
we've
very
always.
nice
I think
improvement.
everyone's wanted it from day one. So
Yeah.
it just gives you those examples of like driving these things from the community, right? It's a really good example of that. Yep, lots of other companies are doing cool things with Flutter. For those that haven't seen it, also recently, Flutter Shark came up. So Flutter Shark's been around a while. It's an app you can install from the Play Store, and it will examine what apps you have installed and then see if they're built with Flutter. So APKs of apps on the device are accessible to any other app on the device, so it can examine it and essentially see if the app contains libflutter.so, right? And know that it's built with Flutter in essence. And then you can extract the metadata and see what version it was built with. So
Did you have any surprises on yours?
Not particularly, but I've had Flutter Shark for a while. So I keep an eye on it every so often. I'll open up and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Quite a few banking apps are now using it, which is not a surprise, but equally, yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, I was quite surprised because one of my teammates installed it on his phone, and he has like 3 pages of Flutter apps. So he has actually more Flutter apps than I have normal apps.
I mean, to be honest, it's one of those interesting things. I hardly ever use apps.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just boring. I think I build them more than I actually use.
You're just too busy.
True.
Anyway, yeah. So we'll go through some of the detail, but that's there's quite cool few things here. But, I had to add Swift Package Manager to existing plugin.
I actually talking about the CocoaPods. Can you go up to the top of that part?
Mm-hmm.
It very specifically is saying that for now you need to do both.
Where did I get to? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Flutter continues to support CocoaPods.
Right, but somewhere in here it said do both. Except for now you should support both.
Yeah, I mean, which makes sense. The thing is, they can't turn off CocoaPods until all the major package authors are changing their packages over to using Swift Package Manager.
Yeah.
Also, I think they mentioned that if you are using add to app, then you cannot use SPM now.
Yeah, which, I mean, there's so many complexities around these things. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Sure.
But interesting. Anyway, so there's for those plugin authors, I'll pop that in the chat for anyone that's interested in reading it. All right. So what's new with Flutter? We've obviously just gone through an overview, so we'll try and keep it light. And I guess if anyone's got any questions, like just chuck them in the chat with the queue in front, and we'll get to them after this. So Flutter GPU. We just said web views. They added monetization support, which is actually quite interesting. That opens up a realm of new apps and possibilities. I saw this. Did you guys see the new slivers?
I did. That was just fun.
So this
some interesting stuff.
Yeah, this one's resolved into a 404. So I'm not sure if it's been published or if the name is wrong. But in fact, you know what we could do? We could actually switch this out for the master API and see. Oh, that's how you do that. Do that again. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, just hasn't been.
I guess it didn't make its way into stable yet. But anyway, sliver floating header. So I made this is basically So this is just it's just a variation of so what you had to do before, if those don't know, you have a sliver persistent header, which is the way to do it, and you'd have to create a delegate. And this whole mechanism is pretty it's pretty noisy and lots of boilerplate just to get some simple widget that does a simple behavior. So what they've done is they've now given us separate slivers that implement those default behaviors. But interesting enough, the header delegate requires you to implement a size a fixed size, where these are intrinsically sized via the child, right? So it will actually measure the child, and then the widget will be that size, which opens up a lot of possibilities and makes things a lot easier to work with. So there's this pinning. Oh yeah, and these pins work within the groups as well, if you remember rightly. So if you have like a main axis, what's it called, a main sliver main axis group or cross axis group, it will pin into those as well. So you can have like section scroll and have pinned headers really easily now. So yeah, so you got pinned header sliver, which is, I guess again, these are all slight variations on what you would normally do with the, so yeah, this is consistently pinned, and you can see what would happen if it had a different size widget. Nothing magical there, really. And then they've got what was it? Resizing. Resizing header. And this one's kind of interesting. You give it a min and a max extent prototype widget. So again, it's about you give these two widgets, and this is what it will measure to get the minimum maximum size that it needs to animate between. So yeah, it will use the intrinsic size of those widgets to actually do the animation. The prototype stuff is actually not utilized enough, and a lot, in my opinion, quite often inside of like list view and slivers. There's quite a few prototype options that aren't being used, which can speed up layout. Anyway, so yeah, so there's some new slivers on the horizon, and this shows you it working with Material 3, which gives you that some nicer stuff. Cupertino action sheet, it's been improved. The bone text field, more underway. Oh, this one was quite interesting. So so we've now got a table view, which is what you see below, and you got tree view as well. So allowing us to have properly recycling. So we already had like two-dimensional scroll views, but now we actually have implementations of which that are default, that allow us to actually do some of these things without having to implement lots. So a lot of us have been looking to have this kind of thing for a very long time, been able to have like properly nice recycling tables, and boom, here it is, which is great. So columns and rows. All up table span. That's interesting because I didn't know you could do spanning.
You can, yeah, that was added. Yep, that's in there.
Span extent. Wow, that actually opens up a lot of possibilities. You actually get cursor support, decorations, and everything.
We have a relevant question right here that popped up. Simon, can you say more about the
Rona.
prototype stuff? Yes, and so for some reason she gets my attention, so I get to pull her up.
Who knows? I
Everybody
don't know
doesn't
Rona.
know. We were
Who-
yeah,
No one knows Rona. Who knows Rona?
that's right. So Simon, can you say more about the prototype stuff? Re-slivers
Yeah,
that isn't being used enough.
I'll bring it up. There you go. So list view has prototype item, and it's exactly this. So what you might do is let me think of an example of this. So when you have a list of items, you want to scroll it, right? You want to scroll to like say the 50th item. You need to know the height of each item, right? To scroll to that. So what you can do is when you're building a list view, you can give it the extent parameter. Where is it? With one time I want to find out all the documentation. Be item extent. Come on. There we go. Come on. Of course it won't expand upon it here. Well, anyway, the point here is this allows you to measure the item and know how big it is. Well, then essentially the prototype item is doing the same thing, but it's doing it from the intrinsic height of the widget. So I actually build the widget and then measure it and then use that as the height of a widget, if that makes sense. So then it doesn't have to do a lot of layout, right? So you can get away with what's the best way of explaining this? Smoother list views, I guess. Less layout, less building. Yeah, I mean, explains it here to one of the better, you know. I think there's actually more of an explanation in some of these, but yeah, I think I'll probably explain this best. I mean, the point here is that you've got it doing the layout and measure sort of once rather than doing it lots. It also means that you don't have to do that. So, for example, let me give you an example of where this is important. You've got a list item that's got text in it. The user changes their font size, their font scaling factors because they're half blind, right? And it goes up to like maximum, and now your list items need to be measured a lot larger. If you were to use the passing the extent manually as like a 50, 100 dips or something, well, then what's going to happen is that text is going to get cut off. It's going to get cropped into the 100 dip box. Whereas if you use a prototype item and fill it with mock content, when it lays it out, it'll work out, oh, this is the size it should be based on the user's current preferences, and therefore lay out all the items correctly appropriate to that size. Does that make sense? Would that be
a little bit? I've got to admit, my brain shuts down whenever we start talking about slivers. Although when I've actually tried using it,
it's just like list view, right? Like it's not particularly about slivers. This is the point here is a prototype item allows the system to lay out a widget and gather its dimensions before having to allow others and use them. So yeah, it says here, look, specifying program is more efficient than letting the children determine their own extent because the scroll machine makes use of the foreknowledge of that extent to save on work. Right. Anyway.
Right.
So so there's that. All right, let's go back to it. So anyway,
talking about the tables, I was just going to point out that Matthew says the table stuff's going to be huge for us. I think a lot of people are feeling the same way.
Yeah, and also the tree view as well. I did, however, notice a bug in the tree view stuff, and I don't know if it's a bug. Where was it? I saw. It might have been the one time I want to. I'll dig it up in a second. Hang on. Yeah, it's tree sliver. That was it. So if we look at the tree sliver, which is the underlying thing for tree view, the example here, when I expand and then collapse it, it kind of jumps back open again. Even when the arrow doesn't change. You can see this. That I've got uno dos tres right inside of alpha. I collapse alpha. Uno dos tres is still there. Now, this could just be a stateful thing in the example, which I'm sure that's what it is, but I don't know. It doesn't hold well. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Did you file a doc bug?
I haven't got to doing that yet, but I'll take a look and see if I can figure out what's going on. So yeah. Cool. And then carousel view. This is another interesting one, right? So now we got a actual carousel view. I actually haven't looked at how carousel view is different from some of the others. They're basically saying here that can change in size when they're scrolled out of view. I mean, I guess so. I mean, this example to me isn't very clear about what the use case might be. I guess it's cool.
Yeah, I wonder how it's different from the G-Skinner carousel.
So the G-Skinner one's quite flexible. It doesn't really, it's not the same in this, right? Like I think this is, you can control the layout quite a lot with that. Initial item. Okay, which index? Item extent. I mean, I can see it gets smaller and bigger the more it comes on, but is that really I mean, you can achieve that effect without a separate widget.
I think part of what we're getting out of this is though it conforms to material. Yeah.
I mean, that's it, right? So this is a widget for the material library.
Yeah, it's a material specific widget.
Item snapping. This doesn't support prototype item. specifies children. There's no builder method either. Yeah, so I'm not sure like how applicable, but you know, if this supports the use case to supporting the material design widgets, then great. Feedback widget. That was the haptic feedback widget, right? That's now been moved into the widgets library from material because it's not material specific implementation. This is another interesting one. So Toggleable.
Simon, if we get questions in that are specific to what's on the screen, do you want to do them?
Oh
now,
yeah,
or do
yeah.
you want to kind of
Just
all right,
bring
go
it
back
up.
on the carousel. Matthew had a question on the carousel view. Does it support content of different heights?
Well, not that I saw there, but I mean, I suspect it was
It's got an item
stretched.
extent. Yeah.
Yeah, but that'd normally be not Amex is normally in the
That's
main
true.
axis,
Yeah, sorry.
right? So in this case, with different heights, you could have. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't have different heights, but then what you'd be doing is just wrapping your widgets in center, right, or something like that. Where
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's part of what I was thinking on that.
we could try it out. I mean, look, right here, look. So look.
Exactly. I love this about Flutter, the documentation.
So shrink extent, I guess it's how much it shrinks from the max extent. Uncontained layout card. Yes, it's center text, color box. Yeah, so they're actually set a max height here for the cross axis, right? So, and then put it in the center. So actually, in fact, taking that out the mix. And that should maximize the height. Yeah. Okay, so now they do that. And then, yeah, you could certainly, yeah. We have an index, we do. So we could do something like, maybe do something really silly, like sized box height, which was say 50 times the length. 25.
I was thinking something like that, yeah.
So, oh, that's interesting. There's
So
a
it kind
touch.
of does.
I mean, there you go. There's different heights.
Sort of.
I mean, you could do the height based on the index, right? If it's coming in or out. But it seems to me like, again, like it's this kind of thing that you can do these effects on current scrolling, right? You don't need another widget to do that. So the key point of this carousel view, I think, is, as we said, it's about material design carousel widget, right? Something that you wouldn't be customizing like this because it moves outside the material design spec. So, but then this is kind of interesting because this is where this kind of stuff comes in. So toggleable painter, toggleable state mixing.
Yeah.
Let me get them up from the. So these give us in the widgets library. This is the sort of underlying library for Cupertino and material. Gives us that kind of easy to repeat set of functionality. So whenever you have anything that toggles on any sort of platform, boom, you use this toggle painter underneath with toggleable state mixing, and you can make toggleable widgets. So that'd be like checkbox and other things. So yeah, not having to repeat ourselves on many different UI frameworks is really important.
Yeah.
Loads. Yeah, there you go. Look, switch, Cupertino switch, checkbox, radio, they all use it. So yeah, I think that we want more of this, right? It's really separate because as soon as you want to do your own checkbox, you're like, I either hacking it into material design or I'm doing my entire widget from scratch. There's no middle ground between those two, and that's what this feels, right? We've also added some getters on the animation status for checking it. It's kind of cool. Toggle method was added to animation controller to switch the direction of the animation. That's pretty cool. Updates the selected area. So we now have triple click and drag and triple click and so on, which supports more of the desktop flows. Which triple click is actually a thing. So you do like double click to select a word, is it single click to select a word, double click to select a sentence, and then triple click to select like a line or a paragraph. So it's a paragraph block. Anyway,
We've been wanting that for a while. Yeah.
Impeller, improve performance and fidelity, solved a number of issues with text rendering, greatly increase the performance of emoji scrolling. I'm not sure. It's interesting. Poor performance, lots of emojis. That's generally a problem with I guess rendering emojis in general. But great, they fixed it. I noticed this, like this shows you like the before and after. So there's a nice sort of aliasing in terms of rendering of note the gaps instead of proper kerning and lighter the font and intended weight. To be honest, it's very hard for me to tell the difference. I can tell the weight difference.
I don't see a difference per se.
I can't really tell the difference in certain kerning. Oh, there you go.
Well, you can see if you zoom in. There's gaps.
There's gaps between the text and then over this one there.
It's not as much.
Yeah, it's much better. I do see that. Yeah.
And then this is showing a sample of what it was before, and then what it is afterwards as well. So fidelity things, which is always important. Android preview for Impeller has been the deadline. It's been additional stable release cycle because there were some issues with Android 14, and they've addressed them with their Android team and blah 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 blah. So basically, it's going to take a while before we get this out stable. So they're extending the release cycle for it, but it continues through into current one. And basically just saying, if you've any shortcomings right now, make sure I think this again comes down to it. All the people out there right now that are listening should be trying their apps with the Impeller flag turned on Android and see how it feels and reacts. And if there's any bugs, note them down, raise the issue tickets. The team want to know, right? They want to. If we all want good apps, then we're all going to have to push back and let them know that there's problems if there are. Otherwise, it releases with the bugs, and then people start complaining about, oh my god, how buggy it is. It's like, well, we didn't tell them it was buggy, right? So,
and I get it. I mean, we're all busy. We have time to do something. We're not going to push out to Pride. I mean, to try things out. But it really is the time to get in and save yourself a lot of headache later.
It's also the fact of the matter is, if you're working on an app, this is it. This is part of it, right? Like you're build. The framework is part of the app. So you have to.
So I mean, it's work to do, but think of the technical debt of letting it release with the problem, and then having to wait through the entire life cycle of getting that fix in. Because it may be something that matters to you that doesn't matter to a lot of people.
Not just that. Imagine the headaches from the workarounds you're going to have to work to get it to fix later on.
Just think about the change to null safety and how much pain people went through when they waited and waited and waited.
Yeah.
So
and invariably, the problem you're going to run into, if it was an obvious thing that everybody's seeing, it's usually going to get fixed. But the problem you're going to run into is going to be something that's a little more of an edge case that you care about a lot, and you could have gotten it in time to get it fixed, and you didn't. So that's what I'm saying. It really is technical debt by not taking on and trying this now when you can. And I will admit, there's a little bit of do as I say, not as I do.
Always the way.
On this.
So we got some better improvements to downscaling of images, and they're going to look at suitable names rather than low, medium, high, and so on. But GP preview.
Something worth mentioning on the last one there, because so many people are confused by that one, that are making games that are just pixel art games. Always set your filter quality to none when you do that. Yeah, because you don't want any of this linear interpolations and stuff that are happening when you're running these ones.
Yeah, you just don't want those. I mean, it's great. There's reasons to have these, especially if you're doing three-dimensional. You got aliasing. You need boolean interpolation. But yeah, if you're doing, as I said, if you're doing the obvious answer, if you're doing pixel stuff, you want those hard edges.
Otherwise, they look blurry. All of a sudden, it gets like the reverse fix. And also, the filter quality high is almost never worth using.
Do you know what? It's quite funny you say that. What was it? I've seen so many people with like building games, and they make all these shaders to make the app behave as if it like the games behave as if it was back in the day. So you kind of got this kind of weird funkiness of happening of, oh, we'll render at like 1080p, but at chunky, like I don't know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Anyway, it's cool though. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a new Flutter GPU API. We'll go through this in more detail. There's actually a separate article on it, but basically, this, in short, this is basically saying that there's a low-level API, and then you got the scene API. Allows you full control for render passes, vertex stage, uploading of data, the whole shebang, which is basically what we need if we're trying to do anything really detailed in 3D. You need access to the pipelines.
This is what we're using in the Flame 3D branch. So if anyone is interested in checking that out, it's quite a lot of work going in there now.
But yeah, Flutter Scene, that's what you probably want to be using if you just want some 3D in your app for various reasons. Cool. We'll go through the blog post in a minute. We just did cover some of this, but yeah, multi-view embedding. This is basically that you use multiple Flutter embeddings in one web page. Previously, it was limited to one. So you have to initialize the engine with multi-view enabled true. It goes through some of the details in the documentation, and then you can do that. So that's great. Monetization, interactive media ads, IMA. This is, although for most of us, ads are like, no one likes ads. But at the end of the day is, it can really make a difference between actually having a product that you can sell and not sell, right? Or have operational. And some apps are probably stuck not using Flutter because they need this to be able to move them over to using Flutter, right? So then in that situation, this is great, right? Like this gets more apps using Flutter. And these are the types of things you can't just do yourself, because if you did your own package that did this, it would be seen as click jacking and some other things, and you might get your accounts and apps banned. So always use the official packages for adverts and advertising. Just telling you now, you've been warned. But yeah, this is obviously important for those that need it. So, right.
Well, I mean, people that make money on their apps help drive adoption. So making that better is got to be a good thing. Has to be, even if we hate the ads.
So, yeah, definitely. Yeah, Swift Packet Manager, we went through that already, but there's some more details in the article. I'll share links to this, by the way, just for those people that want to read along or whatever else. Share preferences have been updated. So we've now got share preferences async and share preferences with cache. I guess great. Yeah. Oh, the first didn't know we had Dart Package Ecosystem Summit at FlutterCon, and that went really well. And there's a whole spiel in here about this. I won't go through it right now, but we're extending this into FlutterCon USA this year. So it'll be next month, end of next month, with FlutterCon USA. Yeah. So if you're interested, there's a lot of information here. And in fact, they've done some really good things to really address some things that have been picked up. So Flutter Tools and IDE. So this is kind of cool, right? So some of they've made improvements to the way that we see rebuild stats, but equally. So this was used to be built into the Windows IntelliJ plugin. There was some stuff in there. I don't think it was in the VS Code one at the beginning, but they've moved it into DevTools now, so now you get the rebuild stats. And then interesting enough, this has now been built into a panel. So now, along with this and the other toolings, the other improvements that have been made, you can now see that as a panel in VS Code. And they've also done that as an improvement as a panel in IntelliJ as well. So you've got the best of both worlds, let's say. This does actually make a good, this makes good use of your time as a developer, right? Being able to have access to these types of tools immediately inside the IDE. Surprising how painful it is when you do something that's not inside the IDE. When your workflow is, you need to shut down, start up, and do like several different things to get your system in a place where you can then start debugging something. So actually having a lot of stuff integrated into the IDE makes it a lot smoother and a lot easier faster to develop. Includes Flutter sidebar for VS Code. Let's get some cool stuff in there, I guess. I didn't use VS Code, so looks cool there. And improvements to dev extensions. This is, for those that don't know, DevTools extensions allow package authors to add tabs into the DevTools. So things like Remy's provider and Riverpod, you can see the state of your of the entire system all inside the DevTools, which can really help for debugging. Breaking changes. So we've got a few. The default web render has changed, and the way pop scope is handled has changed. And there's a full change set for breaking changes. So that's that. It's quite a bit, to be honest. I mean, like that. That's nothing to shirk about.
That's just the Flutter part, right?
Yeah, we'll get to some questions in a second, but I think we'll just briefly jump through this. So we got another quarterly release of Flutter, and they're sort of talking about also the roadmap, right? So what's going to be coming in the future. So they've got a change log. Was it Flutter? Also, the Flutter repo's now got a change log in it. Now they've moved all the. What did I remember reading? Was it that the Flutter repository now has its change log in line with everything else? I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, it
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So originally, for those that don't know, the Dart team have always had. Let's see if I can get this up. There we go. Yeah, so the Dart team always had a change log, and now we have a change log inside of. This is interesting. 322.
They also have the main branch there now.
Why is it set to master? No, interesting. Maybe no one updated. Maybe no one's updated the change log.
It's always been a little bit behind. Stuff like that, but I would have thought now that it's here, it would be here.
Oh, wait, it was 3.2. I might just make sure I'm right. It is Flutter 3.2.4. Yeah.
Yeah, 3.2.4. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. 3.2.4 changes. It's just not. They've not tagged it or made it into. Let them dig that one out. But yeah. So So then you can see all the different changes that went and linked to everything. So this is really helpful when you're trying to understand what change went where and how, which is really beneficial when trying to track some stuff down.
What you're looking at there is the one for the changes to the stable branch. So those are the patches only, right? It doesn't include changes for the main release. It includes what they added on patches.
Pass. I think change log is full change log.
Yeah, Dart's
where you're at, it was not.
Have a look.
The part where you found the 3.2.4.0. That just says initial release.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was picking out like one just to see the. I wasn't going. Yeah, that's not even the one that's checked in at the moment.
Like 3.2.2.0 was like initial release. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, new capabilities. So, web platform. This is quite a big one. So now that we're supporting compiling to WebAssembly with the web package, Dart 3.5 is now considered stable and complete for WebAssembly, right? And we've now updated our browser API bindings for web, which replaces Dart API to version 1. So now we have a stable web API to build against. So basically, if you've been using Dart HTML in any of your Flutter projects, start transition them over to package web. And there's a migration guide here about how you can do that. But this is basically what you need to start doing, migrating over. Now, it may be that some of your APIs that you've been using in Dart HTML don't exist in package web because they're picking and using only the ones that are actually being used recently. So if you find that your web API that you actually want is not represented in there, raise an issue ticket, they will add it to the IDL, or they will generate the code. It will get there. But yeah, this is what you need to offer. Track an issue and put feedback in. This was another interesting one. We're also planning on an update on changing the scoring on pub.dev to make it award points for packages that use the new model. So transitioning your package over from one to the other will get pub points. So if you negate some basically if you're using Dart HTML, and you get them back if you migrate to web, which makes sense. They've had new lint rules for it as well. Native interoperability has also improved. Support for passing points around, so it doesn't have to copy the memory around. So improved performance in a multitude of areas. I won't go through all this because it will bore people, but it actually is really helpful. And these underlying things really do make a performance difference. Pub.dev package manager. It wasn't much known about, but topics has been around a while. So you can add topics into your pub spec if you're a package author, and they allow them to be grouped and displayed in categories on pub.dev for easier finding of packages. So definitely consider adding those. And they will consolidate common ones together. And they do publish those. So this is the consolidation list of topics. So what ones can join together. So for example, logging. If you tag it with logger, logs, log, it will all be considered the same thing, for example. And widgets are joined together. So, anyway, pub unpack has been another interesting command that's been added. So then actually to download a package and unpack it locally so that you can access the files like the example and run it, which makes things a lot easier. This did come up, I think, in the ecosystem committee. I think this was one that came up, but allowing you to sort of easier to manage your dependencies, but allow you to downgrade, but with tight dependencies. Dart roadmap update. IDE and analyzer performance for large monorepos. This one got me as well. So this is cut a long story short. Yes, everyone likes a monorepo. We've heard consistent feedback here. Analysis of these issues suggests the root issue is that we end up loading multiple overlapping analysis contexts for each package for all of its dependencies, leading to several copies of analysis of each package in the monorepo in memory at the same time. Oops. It happens, right? Yeah. But they found it, right? That's the main thing. Anyway, so we believe the fundamental solution to create a single shared resolution of versions for each dependency in such repos. And we're working on such a capability via a new pub feature called Workspaces. We'll have more to share about this in the next Dart release. This was recently applied to the Flutter repo. So let's just briefly show this. So this is showing a diff that actually applies that change. So ignoring some of them, basically inside the packages, inside your package in your monorepo, you add resolution workspace, the pub spec. And then at the top level, you have in your pub spec for your entire monorepo, you can add a workspace and then add the paths to all of your packages. And this allows them to be interpreted together, basically, and managed together, which is quite nice. And that should hopefully improve performances and a bunch of other things, because you won't have a lot less memory utilization. And changing in one place, and it only has to be reanalyzed once rather than multiple times. So
it will also help us a lot in Melos, since we do a lot of like pub spec overrides in there.
Yeah, exactly.
For
right.
the local ones. So now that it's all handled by the workspace resolution instead, which is very handy. So we're looking forward to that.
What else we got here? This is another one. This is another one that came up in the ecosystem committee. A lot of packages want to see how often their packages are being accessed or downloaded, and give some sort of stats. And they weren't making good on that signal, and they're going to be sharing their progress on this adding this capability to pub.dev. So we'll start seeing some more numbers coming through on pub.dev, which is nice. And stable version 1 for native interop for JNI and Objective-C. To get to that point, these are the roadmaps. So if you want to look at the roadmaps of what they're trying to implement, this is where you need to go. We're also investigating direct interop with Swift code. initial experiments look promising. So that's kind of interesting as well, right? And that's also going to make a big difference because the whole Objective-C interface is pretty lame, to be honest, and it's painful. So anything to make that easier is always beneficial. Bundling native sources and native pieces with your packages is also quite important. So that's what they're talking about here. Dart language and macros, still improving it. Yay. If you guys go head off in a second. How long you got? Danielle, did you say you only got an hour on the stream? And John?
Yeah. John and I are gonna have to go pretty quick now.
Yep.
All right. So I just didn't want to.
Yeah. And so basically, we should probably call maybe about 5 more minutes on questions because you've got 10 questions in the queue.
Oh yeah. That's
And you're gonna be losing John and myself pretty quick. So I'll hang around.
Let's briefly just do one more little topic here, and then I think we're pretty much at the end of this anyway. So this also came up. I'm not sure like this, but yeah. So the rewriting the Dart formatter, great. I'm all for that. They can improve the performance of it. Great. The old design worked well for many years, but with the success of Flutter, we want to move to a new style that better works for the kind of declarative code of Flutter users often write. The old formatter wasn't able to produce that kind of output. The rewrite is close to being done. Will ship soon. If you'd like to try it out, try the experimental flag tool style. Welcome feedback. So for those that don't know, this has been a little source of things that have been going around for a while. So basically, for those that don't know, let me give an example here. So these are kind of some things you can do. So if you want to break like a long function call into multiple lines, let me do a bit more. Let's make it massive. No, though. Then you would add a trailing comma, and it would break the formatting like this, right? Which is what you like. And here's an example here. Before you do this, you add a trailing comma, and you get this. And you can already do this, right? But their notion is that even if you don't put trailing comma, it will force it into this. Which, to be honest, I personally like the option, right? I like to be able to. I really don't like this, so I'm it's this kind of like, look, with no, I get the short and tall styles, right? What they're saying, but then you've got the control of choosing it, right? And they're basically saying it's really difficult to keep remembering to add trailing commas and all this. Well, then the solution is automate the addition of trailing commas, right? Or have that as a thing that you can turn on, not remove the ability to not have them. So I'm gonna put this little link. If anyone wants to also comment, then now's your chance, because you're not going to get much longer before it's forced upon us.
Yeah, because I don't love that either. Yeah.
They do. It's interesting because there are pros. They go through pros. Dart train commas, having to opt in. Users prefer to either short tasks or have it each in their way. Force if a user wants to force an argument, a parameter to split, they can otherwise fit it into. You have control, basically. It says it's inconsistent about how list and map literals are formatted, so nested code containing a mixture of them. I mean, sure, but then have that as an option you turn on. There's other ways to solve that, right? I don't like the idea of being forced into it. If a user wants a tool style but doesn't want to force every argument to split, they have no way of getting that. Instead, the users want to have a tool style must remember to manually remove any trailing commas from the list. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm sorry, adding a remembering comma is not a big deal. I'm not seeing a problem here.
But when you reformat, is it going to add it back if it's automatically added?
But they don't need them. The point here is even if you don't have a trailing comma, it will format in the tool style. It will only format in the tool style if it would break on a line.
Right, but I mean, it would seem to me if it's automatically adding it or whatever, if I delete it, it's going to put it right back next time I format it, would seem.
Yeah, well, you can't. That's the point. Like you're forced into that formatting style of tool, which I get in terms of. So the point here is like when you look at widget hierarchy, right? So short style, tall style, block style. Where is it? think there's an example down here of widgets. Yeah, see, I'm okay with them, like, you know, reducing down, fixing this, right? Like less indentation, right? Have them fix this kind of thing, right? To me, that makes sense. The double indentation never make quite any sense, but that doesn't mean, you know.
Yeah.
Again, this makes more sense. I'm okay with this, but you would do that by putting a comma in, right? As you can see here.
Yeah.
Well, you can do it Dart format, Chris. So Dart format would actually, you can have it format entire directories. Just give it a directory folder and format every file in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I think there's the other option is have it configurable, but then I think there's a whole thing around. So we tried to do this before. There's community chat around line length. So at the moment, there's no way of configuring a line length for a Dart Flutter project, which I think is insane, right? You can configure your IDE, that goes into your IDE settings. You can configure, and then it has to be overridden when it calls the Dart formatter. Or if you want to run your tooling like Melos or anything else, you need to specify the line length. There's no file like Dart format.yaml that contains formatting parameters, right? Like line length. And then you can put that in your project, you check it in, and then everyone that uses your project gets that line length. That to me, that makes sense, right?
Sure, because I could be working on a project for me, and I've got, or what my company, my day job has one line length, and I'm doing something for Simon who uses a different line length. That's a problem because it format my code wrong to put it in.
There's another issue to get actually around that, but equally enough, it's the same here. I feel like change it, but then have like a setting for it, right? Yeah. So you can actually you can try it now and you can do some of this stuff. But yeah, I particularly downvoted this one, but it's got a lot of upvotes, and I think, you know, again, it's like it's this, right? It's this. People write code like this, right? And I just say, just add your trailing commas in, then you'll get this. Yeah. And there's an example of it. Look, there's your trailing commas, right? The idea is that it's going to force this style on you, right?
Yeah.
So, which is fine for these layouts, right? For like when you're doing layout code, it makes sense, but not for everything. So forcing tool style, there you go, versus this, right? Wouldn't allow anyone, the proposed formatter wouldn't allow that anyone anymore.
Yeah, so in other words, it's saying you couldn't do the comma at the end and make it force down. Now, because it fits on one line, it would make it fit on one line.
Yeah. I think it only formats if it's longer than a line. But again, anyway, so there's a whole long conversation around this and it's being worked on. So yeah, if you want to track it, again, I'll put the link in the chat for anyone that wants to track it. But yeah, and also at the moment, if you do want to require trailing commas in your code, turn on the lint check, and it says it as like an error or warning. That's what it's there for. So you know, we have that capability. We have the power.
And there's also quick fixes for it in there, so it's quite for it to just fix it.
All right. So I think that kind of covers the things. Let's.
So I think we're losing John.
Yep.
I know we're losing.
I have to go too.
We're losing Lucas. So
we may get some questions.
Yeah, exactly. So you got 10 of them in the queue, so the questions are cut off for sure.
Yeah.
And
all right.
Yeah.
See you all next week.
Yeah. Thank you all. See you next week.
Yeah. See ya. And see you at Flutter and Friends.
Indeed.
I wish I could.
Right. So what do we have? Should we go through the questions? Oh. Somebody else left. No.
Oh, no.
Let's see. What have we got? Some asking is WoW Shop and near future better clean architecture approach. Just find the way it is. As far as possible, not well managed. I think they're perfectly fine and well managed. Thank you very much. I think it's fine as it is, and yeah, it'll be complete at one point, I'm sure. I mean, yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, moving on. I issue Felix a quotable issue 177. good for you. I mean, I can look it up, but I don't think.
Yeah, let's take a look. What's the issue?
Let's see. Let's see what we got. Questions using covariant. Question using covariant equatable macro and consideration of hash or method. Okay. It's more about a performance thing, right? And also keeping backwards compatibility of what's already been there. I mean, what do you want me to say? I mean, it's about another library. I mean, it's down to Felix. Nothing really I want to add to this. Follow it up with Felix and see what it says. We published last week, yes. I'll give it a bump. Yeah, I'll give it a bump for you. Right, next.
Next, yes.
Want to show Play Store update screen within the application like bottom sheet. If they click update, we have to close bottom sheet and show snack bar app is upgrading background. Huh? You're talking about the in-app update feature that the Play Store offers. Is that what you're talking about?
Isn't it like the native feature of Android that you can check that?
Yeah, they got their, what's it called? Like, I don't know what it's called now. Yeah, well, yeah, that's not what I want. There's that new, I don't know what it's called now. Like it pops up and tells you, oh, your app is out of date. You can like do it. There's a new version of your app, and it's like, I've forgotten what. There's tons of these things. I want to show it in the application. If they click update, yeah, we have a closed bottom sheet and now shows up. Yeah, I mean, what's your question? You can do that. I ask you how to. I mean, you need to clarify your question, and then we'll go from there. Because yes, you can do that. You just told us exactly how you would do it. I don't know if there's a question there. Add post frame callback, schedule frame callback, use case, when to use. It's I mean it's the same. So add post frame callback uses schedule, but the difference is it creates one future that all of the things can hang off of, so they'll get executed at the same time. Normally you want to be using add post frame callback. Schedule frame callback is you won't know if your code's being called before some other code, right? So I don't know, it's more about timing than anything else. But to be honest, it's not a big difference. For most use cases, it won't make any difference whatsoever to your app. So yeah, there you go. Continued. It's continued. Once an update is downloaded and then we have to restart the app, is this possible in Flutter? I mean, what? Well, I mean, like, how you like? What is this update you're doing? If it's an update to the APK, your app to install it, it's going to be restarted. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that it will restart your app if the
You don't need to like
installation is completed, right?
Yeah, you don't need to like restart the app. Like, it will be shut. That you've installed over the top of it, it will be shut down. You can terminate your activity, and you could do a use the Android intent plus package to schedule another intent to start your activity back up again. It's an Android specific thing, but you could do that. I mean, you're talking about like, is it everything's possible in Flutter? Everything's possible in Flutter, right? The point here is, are you trying to do it in Dart? Because you're now trying to work with the native platform. So now you're going to have to do platform specific code, right? So I think you need to understand what you're actually trying to achieve. Like if you're just downloading something inside your app that maybe affects how it renders widgets or something else, then you can just call run app again, and it will render with a new widget, with a new instance of that widget, and that's it. You're good to go. You've basically just restarted your app. So yeah, hopefully that helps. What do you think about Flet? Flet? I have no idea what Flet is. Flet.
I've heard the name before, but what was that again?
It's a package. It's a package called Flet. It's a framework for adding and serving a server-driven UI for experiencing to existing Flutter apps. So I did server-driven UI a long time ago. An interactive Flet widget in your app whose content is controlled by a remote Python script. Is a ideal solution for building non-core, frequently changing fun. I mean, meh. I mean, why not use Dart? Why use Python? If you're going to build a Flutter app and you're going to do this, then do the remote stuff in Dart. That's what I'd say. Yeah, I'm not convinced. This sounds to me like what this is someone wanted to write their UI in Python. And they couldn't get work inside the app, so they did it on the server side. And then they made server-driven UI with Python. Sorry if this was you. No offense, but it's not really my thing. I just don't see the point of it, to be honest. Like a lot of apps don't require like server-driven UI, right? And even if you did require some sort of UI that's server-driven, it's more like to the level of which widgets you want to display. You base that off of logic. You base that off of some JSON and metadata that you're receiving. So it's a bit like you could receive the layout information, display this widget with this content, this widget with that content. Your app receives that, and then that's what it does. It just does that, right? Like that's server-driven UI, right? You can make it more flexible, right? And that's where RFW comes in. Remote Flutter widgets? I can't remember what it stands for now.
Yeah.
All right, RFW, isn't it? It's RFW. Yeah, remote Flutter widgets. So this is the package that was made by Ixie and still maintained by him, I believe. But it's official by the Flutter team. And the idea being that you use a Dart-like syntax to build up UI widgets, and when it uses the container or these constructors like center, it will call some constructor some code in these libraries to actually construct those widgets, which is something we did on the stream a long time ago. And that allows you to basically, you can see here, like when you actually make your own widget library, when you want a green box, it will return this. When you want a hello widget, it will return those sets of widgets. Yeah. So, and this gives you full control over what you want to do. So. Any way to inspect WebSocket requests similar to Chrome in Flutter. The DevTool inspector doesn't have any information about WebSocket messages. Interesting. So I haven't seen that in the DevTools, but we spoke about DevTool extensions. You could go build yourself a DevTool extension and have it show that information. Yeah, it's a bit more complicated than that, to be fair. But it sounds like a really good idea, actually. It would definitely be really helpful.
That they don't show in DevTools.
Yeah, it you see network and you get the HTTP requests, but yeah, you don't get WebSockets. So yeah, no, that could be helpful. I mean, alternatively, like most people, just build a little bit of UI and add it to your app that shows you and debugs it within your application. You don't need it separately.
Print.
Well, no, but I mean, like you can actually have UI, right? So you can actually have like a.
Yeah, I know. I'm just too lazy, and I
know, but I mean, a lot of apps will have like a debug panel, right? That you can like tap or pull out, and that'll have what the flavor and everything else is that you're building and stats and information. What feature flags are turned on, and then you could also have in there like here's a list of connections. What's the amount of data rate that they're transferring out? You could do a bunch of stats and information, and show a little graph about your WebSocket, like other things. All right. how can I learn about managing large filter projects, starting from uploading the project to GitHub all the way to uploading to the store?
I think you meant Flutter, not
Oh,
Filter.
Flutter. Yeah, okay. I think I how can you learn it? Well, I mean, I can't think of any particular source of information around this. I would go look at a good example of this is maybe the Flutter Community Plus packages, and the use of Melos. There's also the Firebase packages, and their use of making large projects and uploading it to there. But it's not really an app. At the end of the day, I'm not sure.
So what do you mean by large? Usually if you have large applications, just many features, right? So if you have
I was thinking about making
features,
more like how do you manage a monorepo with lots of packages and everything else, right? That's why I was thinking like, when I think of a large Flutter project, I'm thinking of that. So maybe yeah, I'd say I think there's a few different talks. So maybe have a look around at some of the recent conference talks that have taken place. I think there's a few talks around like managing large projects. I feel like I've seen a couple. But I've got no particular reasons I can point you at. I mean, a lot of it just comes with building apps and using them for a long time. Melos is a great source that people have been using, which is a monorepo management tool. Allows you to essentially deal with these overrides and deal with like large sets of packages and plugins that depend on each other. So hopefully that helps. All right, what's next? Roberto. Oh, I see Roberto. I think it's the Roberto anyway. Override translation on widgets from my custom package. My app have same localization keys as my custom packages, but I see the custom package translations on those widgets instead of main. Okay, so it sounds to me like what you've actually got a problem is that you're generating the same localization with class for both. So when you use Flutter localization, let me see if I can find the documentation. When you use Flutter localization, you can specify a YAML file with lots of configuration options. See if I can. That's not the official packages. Hang on, bear with me. Where did they? I'm trying to remember where it's been put now. Anyway. Well, here's the documentation for it. I'll pop this in the chat for those that haven't seen it. Yeah, so when you use Flutter localizations package itself, you can specify a L10N file, and there's a lot of parameters you can specify. Not just the output of the file, but the class name and a bunch of other things. There is documentation, and I can't remember where. Is it in here? The one time I wanted. Yes, here's all this information. Yeah, here you go. Configuring your file. Yeah, so you can specify a different class, the output class. So you would have app localizations for your app, and then for your other custom package or whatever it was, you would have you can change this to be whatever your package name is, and then both of those would have to be added to your Material app widget for the supported localizations. I think it's called supported localizations. Anyway, you give it a list of all the various ones, including global material and widgets localizations and global material localizations. Yeah, anyway, so that's it really. I can't think of any other way. Like that would answer the issue that you've got here where you've got the same key, because then you've got 2 separate classes with 2 separate keys. Yeah. I mean, it's also a case of where you're importing it. So it sounds like you might be importing the wrong package, because you can still have the same class, but have them imported differently. It could also depend on where you're outputting your generated, because if you don't specify an IL10 file, it outputs into a generated package, which could be the same for both, and that might be a problem. So maybe you need to specify the directory where the outputs are being generated outputs are being written to, because if you don't, it goes into the Dart tool directory as a what's it called? Generative package, a ephemeral package, something like that. That's got a weird name. Anyway, yeah. All right. When I expand an expansion panel, the border and the content of the list tile below the expansion panel behaves weirdly and moves away from each other in a sliver list as slivers for custom scroll. Probably means you're missing a material widget. It's probably where things are being painted. So a lot of widgets, a lot of time you don't realize that a lot of these things are painted onto the parent piece of material. So you might get some graphic glitches if you're not properly adding material widgets for each of your items. I can't really, without seeing it. I mean, the best thing I say to someone is come next week, put an example and a gist, and then we can run the example, and we can show it on stream, we can try it out. That's the best thing I can say, because it's hard to really see understand what you're talking about. But I would say try wrapping your the various widgets in a material. I'm going to expand the expansion panel, bordering content of a list tile below. Yeah, I mean, there should be no problem with that. So I would suggest that you one or either of them probably needs a material widget. All right. Did we get anything else come in? Oh, that was it. George mentioned Android in-app updates. That's what it's called. That was the thing I was thinking about. Thanks, George. I haven't tried the new fleet thing, but yeah, it could be interesting. Yeah, and that's true. Child proxy can send WebSocket traffic. That's quite helpful. Let's see what else we got going on in the question here. Oh yeah, so Jessica said that Felix normally answers faster on Discord, so maybe give him a try there. How do I listen to changes in the location of a Flutter widget in a screen? I'm going to ask, why do you need to? Because it kind of like defeats the purpose of doing the declarative UI. So the idea is that you at that level of app and build, you should not need to know this information. Nowhere during build you should need to know the size or position of widgets, right? You need to know the relationship with other widgets, but not those specifically information. That's layout, right? So try and separate those two things in your mind. If you're doing things where you're requiring to position things in XY positions during build, that probably means that you want to find you can do that, but you really want to move that back down to layout. So you really want to at that point do a custom widget, do something else, right? I'd also say that there's also the widgets you're probably missing and then you're wanting to use are transform follower. What was it called? Oh, it's gonna forget what they're called now. Composited transform follower. That's the one. So what you probably you want is composited transform follower and composited transform target. These two widgets work together with a link layer link, and this allows two widgets to essentially be positioned atop each other and move around the same. So the follower will follow the target. one of the two. Yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
that's probably what you're trying to achieve. But the same thing works for a single child scroll view. Yeah. I mean, and it's again,
It would
post
be
your
good to
code
see the
example.
code. Yeah.
Can't really explain until I see some code, right? Cool. What else do we have? I think that's it. Hopefully, everyone enjoyed us talking about the new features and things. And yeah, I think same place, same time next week. I'll see if I can get some time and do some live coding, but I'm super busy right now, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'm gonna start doing some porting now with the Flutter GPU, so maybe that'll be some fun coding. Right, thanks for everyone. Thank you, Raf, for sticking around, and we'll see you all same time, same place next week. All right.
Yeah.
Bye for now. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks.